No. First thing I'm thinking, once we get this actual season here going,
I swear to God that you will bust a nut the first time you play. That's my
my
money
money
back
back
guarantee.
guarantee. But either way, welcome back, everybody. Today we are talking about this lovely little patch here called Developer Blog. First information on the upcoming season. And honestly, this stuff's getting me pretty friggin' hyped here. Now, if you don't know, what's coming up after this season will be the Ravens event, which is similar to the Kinect Riders event, which actually I think it is just a Kinect Riders event. And in that, they've already said there's going to be nothing new in that. That's just going to be the pretty much bog standard affair, being able to craft your few, couple of redundant items that have been the standard for years now. So, going to be the same thing. Sorry about that. Going to be pretty dull. However, we got some pretty interesting stuff on the season coming after that. So let's go ahead and take a look at that right now. So first off, we got this new light cabin here. We'll start with a new cabin that will expand the range of your epic light cabins in the game. The perk which are planned for this cabin will increase the damage dealt by the weapons installed in the vehicle, and the percentage of the damage increase will depend on how long you're able to stay and drive in a straight line without turning or braking. Sounds like a challenge to your armored car driving skills, which honestly sounds like it might be pretty interesting. Although I'm actually kind of curious if this perk applies to things like rockets, or if it applies to things like drones at all. So the further you drive in a straight line, will your sidekick just like slowly grow in progress? Or what about things like those mines that you can just launch away? Will you literally just be driving in a straight line and then boop? Will that happen like though? But the thing is, I'm kind of curious as to if this thing will actually have a tolerance band. Like, could you turn a little bit, or is there literally zero turning option that you can do at all for this? So I'm kind of curious as to like how effective that perk will be, because I imagine for console players who drive on an analog stick that's only that drives around in 360 directions at any given moment, I can see this being especially hard to do on that. Mouse and keyboard, it's going to be easy. You just press W key and there you go, free damage. Although I am just terrified to see what the damage aspect for something like this is with a Lance build. Imagine a Lance build, but with like the old cockpit cabin where you could get like 200% damage depending on how fast you were going. But let's take a look here. We also got the new Epic Grenade Launcher. Now, if you don't know, currently we have, I believe, the Emily, the Impulse, the Retcher, and I think there's probably something else I'm missing, but those are the ones that I'm thinking of right now. A very curious specimen which we will show pleasantly surprised grenade launcher enthusiasts. See for yourselves. A relatively small model compared to the Retcher, which is convenient to protect and help structural parts, which I guess could be quite nice if you can hide underneath things like fenders. That'll be super useful. We have a high rate of fire here. I'm kind of curious though as to how high rate the fire is, and if it's like a Retcher where it lobs out 4 grenades at once, or if it's just gonna like lob out 1 grenade and it's just like do, kind of like that. But it seems that when successfully hitting a target located from a certain distance or further away, the damage by the grenade launcher will increase, and the bonuses for multiple consecutive hits will be stacked. So essentially, it's going to be similar to that. I think there's a rocket launcher that was from that purchase pack that increases your damage, or of like the whirlwind, where the further you are, you actually deal more damage. Or I think it was the cricket, where it's like in excess of 100 meters, you do like 200% damage or something like that. So I'm kind of curious if it's going to operate something like that. But the thing is too, do we have to be precise with it? Like if you miss a shot with the grenade launcher, will the damage completely be voided? Or is it like it just stacks up and then you have to rack it up in a certain amount of time frame and it doesn't reset with missed hits? Because if that's the case, that'll be certainly interesting for a weapon that'll just lay down the hay here. Not to mention though, as someone who plays PvE a whole bunch, I'm not particularly excited about another grenade launcher, especially one that's an epic variety, so it's going to be hyper accessible, at least relative to the Retcher, meaning that it might be very popular in PvE to the point of it being kind of like almost mandatory or going to steal points away from everyone else. But we'll have to see here. We'll have to see. Yeah, and it's definitely a direct predecessor to the Retcher, which makes sense. But after that, we have this new legendary frontal machine gun, which actually I'm kind of excited about. I originally purchased the Icebox and the Tacklers way back just because I love the nice, interesting nature of having only a frontal directed machine gun, plus of all the interesting build paths that you could do with it. In fact, my Clan Wars vehicle that I rocked forever was a Spider Icebox build with I believe it was the M29 Protectors, I believe that was what it was called. And my guess is these legendary machine guns are going to be exactly the same. So, supporters of the Nomads and everyone who's passionate about machine guns, interesting new weapon awaits you. This is the first legendary frontal machine gun in Cross, and it's definitely worth paying attention to. Limited firing angles compensated by great durability in comparison to the Aspect, but to be fair, the Aspect only has like, what, 200 durability? So it's not particularly durable. I think even the M20 Protector is way more durable, plus the model itself can easily be hidden inside of a cocoon of armor parts. The Aspect, with its much larger kind of, I don't want to say model, but area that you have to build around, it's not nearly as effective, but does have way higher damage. Good survivability is facilitated by both by the weapon model itself, which is convenient to defend, of course, because you can have fuse points or weld points all around the thing, so it's super easy to build around. And by the perk, the hands of an experienced shooter, the weapon will become even more resistant to all types of damage. I'm curious if that also means things like electric damage, or I don't know what it's called, energy damage? That type of damage is usually generally excluded from damage resistance, so I'm curious if it's still going to be vulnerable to things like Prometheuses and Heliusos. But that'll be interesting to see how that turns out, especially with the cabin below too, because if that's the case, this thing could be definitely very, very durable. Imagine this on a this cabin down here, because that will also increase its durability even further. But I'm just kind of curious as to what the durability of this thing is going to be in general. I mean, if this thing has like a durability of like 400 with the chance of increasing resistances, I could see this thing being basically a mainstay for any machine gun user in any sort of competitive scene. But I'm also curious as to what its damage is, because generally limited angle machine guns have generally the best damage to energy proposition, so I'm kind of curious if this is still going to be continuing with the trend. I think it's like, what, 3 or 4 energy per machine gun? So this might be somewhere in that neighborhood too. Next, we have a new legendary cabin, which honestly looks pretty dang badass. If you can actually take a look at this in pretty close proximity here, I mean, just look at the model of that thing. The thing looks amazing. Just love the look of it here. It actually looks like, too, it also has a very hollow back end here. Just you can kind of see like a little bit of a lip right here. So I'm kind of curious then if that means you can actually shove things like explosives or radiators in there without any sort of issue of it blowing up. And if that's the case, that'll be amazing, especially if hardware modules can utilize its perk. So heavy armor vehicle enthusiast, how do you like the appearance of the new heavy cabin? Love it. We're sure that many players who suggested the introduction of a tramper train cabins will not remain indifferent. Not to mention too, I actually think this is a train model that already exists in the game. If you actually look around in the world of Crossout, there's plenty of locations that are train based. So I'm actually curious if these are just one of the models, but split in half. The cabin not only increases the impression of solidarity and protection, but also literally strengthens your weapons. It is planned that if the weapon has at least one welding point directly to the cabin, its durability will be increased depending on the durability of the entire armored vehicle here. Now I can see this being a very promising build for a lot of people. I mean, if you have a tsunami or a typhoon and you're able to plop that thing onto this, especially considering that it scales with the durability of your car, I'm assuming not in a linear fashion, but probably in a logarithmic or exponentially decaying fashion. So like at 1,000 HP points, you can only really get maybe 1 extra HP for every 10 or something like that. I don't know, we'll have to actually see what this is on the PTR. But if that's the case, anyone with like any sort of weapon that has natural damage resistance or has a high much HP, like cannons and things like that, this will be an extremely valuable build proposition too. Now, of course, you may have to build in a very exposed fashion to utilize this, but I can imagine a clamshell design with 3 cannons mounted around the cabin could be extremely good for something like this. Imagine the 88s, but they have just an ungodly amount of resistance. I can see this thing being very, very useful. Or you could probably put this thing on a spider build and have like undermounted guns too. Oh, that'd be extremely nice. Of course, you can't increase the durability of your guns indefinitely, which is kind of nice. If it scaled 1-to-1 with your cabin durability, that would be ridiculous. Imagine a 4,000 HP aspect. Oh, that would be kind of fun. The bonuses will be enough to even feel even more confident in the fiercest of battles, which is great, because if you don't know, basically stripping your weapons is the first thing you do in any sort of competitive battle. Trying to kill a car is, I don't want to say downright impossible, but by the time you actually peel through someone's armor and HP, the car has probably already killed you. Because you guys remember, the weapons themselves at maximum have like, what, 1,000 HP? And any standard high-ranking car is going to have like 3,000 or 4,000 HP, plus you have to peel through armor, so it becomes a very, very challenging task. There's all the novelties that await us in these seasons. Stay tuned to be updated the latest announcements and changes. See you in the next developer blog. So yes, this is just a little tidbit of what to expect, but based on the last sort of, how should I say, I remember in the Syndicate season, they gave a little showcase of all the upcoming weapons. They're like, oh, this isn't everything. We have new stuff awaiting for you. But this is pretty much exclusively going to be all the heavy hitters here. So you pretty much know that anything beyond this is not going to be nearly as entertaining or nearly as valuable. These parts and weapons right here are likely going to be the main heavy hitters here, excluding any sort of pack they sell with this season to make it more interesting. But at the same time, too, they also didn't include this thing right here, which was supposed to be... We actually don't even know, actually, because we don't have any official information on this other than the image, so we know what the model type is. But a lot of people speculate that this might be either A, new relic or legendary autocannon that actually is going to be similar to the Whirlwind, or B, since it actually has this very interesting scope on it, and actually might be an auto-firing weapon similar to that of the Caucus. Which actually would be very interesting if we had like a legendary relic version of a Caucus. I'd be down with that, even though I probably wouldn't be able to pay for it for a very, very, very long time. But it'll be interesting to see what that'll actually turn out to be. So it looks like they're maybe saving one of their heavy hitters here, but hopefully it's not a relic, because the thing is with relics is that 99.99% of the player base in Crossout will never get to interact with relics. So basically putting a relic into the game, I don't want to say it functionally becomes non-existent, but it does functionally become non-existent for the vast majority of player bases out there. But we'll have to see what that actually turns out to be. So what do you guys think about this brand new parts and informations here? What are you guys most excited for? I'm mostly excited for the new legendary cabin, closely followed by the legendary frontal machine gun here. But let me know what you guys think down below. But other than that, guys, I'll see you all guys next time, and take care. Bye-bye.